Cool. We are live now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Annapolis Environmental Commission, the AEC. This is our June 30th meeting, and we'll be meeting from 7 to 9. I just have the agenda on the screen. We'll have our roll call. We'll do our administrative business, our minutes, and then we're going to talk about our action items from last meeting, talk about development and restoration. I do have some legislation to review with you, the Climate Resiliency Authority, and we can talk about the tree removal legislation that hasn't been submitted yet, introduced yet. And then we have our JEDI report, and then Eric Lashinsky is going to meet it or join us for the last 15 minutes to talk about the new updates to the comprehensive plan. So for roll call, I see we have Ann Stevenson, Brandy Rao, let's see, Allison Colden, Jeremy Hansen, Kate Bohannon, Bill Leary, and myself, Bevan Kreiser. So we do have a quorum. Oh,
and Paul Murphy is also here. He's
okay.
I'm trying to promote him to panelist. He is stuck in attendance right now.
All right. So I did want to say that the AEC needs one more member to be the full contingent. I'm going to stop the screen share. Actually, I'll just leave it up. So yeah, we do need one more member to be the full contingent. And I did hear from Kate that she did not ask to be reappointed. So that means we'll need two more members to be a full contingent. So the city does want to hear from you all and have some recommendations. If you have recommendations for people to serve on the AEC, please forward them to Hillary, or forward them to myself, and I'll forward them to Hillary. So I'm going to move on to approval of the May 2021 minutes. I hope you all had a chance to read them. I read them right before the meeting. I don't have any edits to the minutes. Did anybody have any edits to the minutes? I know, Anne, that you read them. I saw that you responded already.
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Okay. Do we have a second? Randy, were you seconding?
Yep.
Okay. And then all in favor of approving the May 2021 minutes? Anybody opposed? Okay.
This is Kate. I'll abstain because I was absent.
Okay. All right.
So was I. This is Bill O'Leary.
Okay. All right. So then everybody else approves them? Okay. All right. Thanks. Oh, and I did want to mention that that we heard from Tammy that next month will be her last meeting being our recorder. So she's been our recorder for many, many years, and we've all grown very fond of her. And maybe we can arrange an outside get together to see her off next month, outside of our meetings, of course. So we wish her all the best. And I think Tammy said she's taking a job with Howard County, right?
That is right.
Yeah. Well, that's congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I'll miss you.
I'll miss you guys more.
So we also heard from Hillary that we could consider having in-person meetings in the fall, and that's really up to the commission whether we want to meet in person or still hold Zoom meetings. So I would, want to hear from you all whether you feel comfortable meeting in the fall. Do you want to make the call now, or do you want to wait until we get closer to the fall?
So to clarify on that, it's either all in person or all virtual, or is there like a mixed version where some of us could be?
That's a good question. I don't know, and that I can ask that. So we could see if we have a hybrid option.
I have to say, while I welcome the chance to see you all in person, I don't miss that terrible conference room in Gorham that heats up with its halogen lights. So
Yeah.
I was eyeing the library here on West Street yesterday, thinking maybe that would be a nicer place.
Oh,
I wonder if we have some other options. No offense, to the Gorham Street building.
yeah, that's a good option. I mean, I'll ask Hillary if we have that option. I don't see why we couldn't do it there. It's a public place. We might have to reserve a room, with the library system to do that. And also it's got free parking, which I like because I don't like, citizens having to come pay to park to come see the business of the city. So yeah, I'll ask them about hybrid option for fall and also if we can meet somewhere else, West Street Library, and if they have any other options that we could consider as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel comfortable making that. We could make that call, I think, in August to see if we want to have a September meeting in person, hybrid, or wherever. Also, I should mention we usually take a hiatus in August because people are taking vacations and things like that. So wanted to put it up to the group whether see if you wanted to do that and get your input on that. So I'm in favor of a hiatus in August. Are you all?
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do we know when our July meeting will be?
Oh, well, we're the fourth Wednesday, so that's July 30th. So yeah, I think I put it, I didn't put it at the end of the agenda. So that's July 30th. Wait.
Fourth Wednesday, July 28th.
Okay, July 28th. That brings another point up. I know some people do Wednesday night sailing. So was Wednesday night still working for you? I know I heard from Paul on that tonight already. Is Wednesday not the best day? We could do another day. I'm fine with another day.
Wednesday is okay with me.
Okay.
Yeah, sailing.
Okay. Kate, are you all right?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yeah, Wednesday's fine. I think aren't there other boards? We probably would conflict with other boards, right? If we
Yeah, I think we had it. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep it on Wednesday then. All right. Thanks to you sailors that have to skip Wednesday night. Thank you. Let's see. Also, I saw in the newspaper that Paul was reappointed, Bill was, and I was, and then Kate had asked not to be reappointed. So those reappointments are already made.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
I didn't hear
know.
about that.
I read it in the newspaper last night. So surprise. And so I wanted to just run through the status of we're zooming right along, so that's good. Actually, we're right on time. The status of the action items from the last meeting. So the St. Mary's Living Shoreline letter to the Historic Preservation Commission. Anne and Allison took charge of that, and they did a great job and sent that off. Did you all get any response from that, or do you have any update on where that is? I think there was an alternate plan or a change in the actual plan of the Living Shoreline or the design.
I'm not sure about the change in the design, but I'll just say did not receive any confirmation. That was sent to Hillary so she could pass it along to the Preservation Commission. I didn't actually get any confirmation as to whether or not they received it though.
Okay.
And I was thinking today when I saw the agenda that I didn't ever send our letter to Pat from St. Mary's. And I mentioned our letter to Jim from the Severn River Commission, but again, I didn't send it to him. So maybe it would be useful for us to send it to Pat and the commission folks and also the DNR folks. So
sure.
Maybe I can take that as an action item to just send Allison's final copy along to a few more folks.
All right. Yeah, that'd be great. And then we can check in with Hillary also and just make sure the Historic Preservation Commission received it. All right. Thanks, you all. And did you put that letter on the Google Drive? It's a really good letter. Everybody should read it, I think.
Yeah, it's in our AEC 2021 folder under
Okay.
in the letters subfolder.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. And also, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't gotten to that DEIJ memo to the mayor and city council, except I was looking at our Google file and I'm not sure I was on the right version of it when I went to edit it. So, Randy, can you let me know where that is and what shape it's in? Because the file I found on Google was not. It wasn't.
To my knowledge, it's just still like a think tank dump. It's just a dump of the ideas. It
Okay.
hasn't been really shaped any further than that.
All right.
I think what we were trying to do was figure out maybe a short list of
Right.
the long list that we could all agree on to send as recommendations or ideas.
Okay. Well, could you send me what the latest version that we have right now?
Okay.
I didn't want to edit it because I thought I wasn't even on the right version. So I'll try and get that into shape. Also, the letter to the mayor and Department of Public Works Director Michael Johnson recommending solar for the roof of the Department of Public Works building. I just sent that off. I think I copied Ann. Ann, did I copy you on that? I think I sent it yesterday. Can you put that in the Google Drive for us too?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I invited Director Johnson to our July meeting to talk about the solar for the roof and also the increase in the stormwater fees that occurred in the last two budgets. It was adopted in the last two budgets, and we haven't had any discussion about that, and I'm really concerned about that because I just don't, that's certainly within our area to discuss and make recommendations on, and it keeps just happening in the budget and nobody's talking to us about it. So I wanted to get the report on that. So, the other things I just looked over, looking from our last meeting, I looked over my notes and the minutes. We also had a couple other people we wanted to invite to future meetings, and that was Kate Fritz to talk about the county comp plan, and then Vince Leggett, and then Joel Dunn. And I think I didn't have it in my notes about what we wanted Joel Dunn to talk about, and then Vince Leggett as well. I think Vince was going to talk about DEIJ stuff or JEDI.
Bevan, I think maybe both of those were related to the Bemby Beach project, the Cars Beach project.
Okay.
Yeah, I met with Joel Dunn last month and Mark Conway, and they just telling me that they were interested in using the Chesapeake Conservancy to kind of break up and foil what is going on currently and try to use it as a means of preserving that aspect of the project.
Okay, so we have already invited Director Johnson to our July meeting. Should we invite, I don't know, either Kate or Vince and Joel to that meeting as well? I mean, what's your preference? The Bemby Beach project. Because then we're going to take an August recess, and then September will be our next meeting.
I would say if the topic is going to be about or they're going to be speaking, I said, you may want them to be involved in the discussion.
I'm thinking, depending. Well, let's hear from Eric and see what the timeline is for the comp plan, because we might want to invite Kate to our July meeting because she's to talk about the comp plan that the county did. So that might make sense. And I'm not sure how fast the Bemby Beach thing is occurring, but so maybe Vince and Joel in like September. All right. Well, we can figure that out offline. Yeah, so that was like a couple other things from our last meeting.
And Bevan, I'll put a reminder on the calendar to follow back up either you or I can follow back up with Michael Johnson, because I'm worried that your invite, because it's part of the solar note, will get sort of lost in the shuffle. So
Right.
maybe in a couple weeks. Follow up.
All right, sure.
Bevan,
Uh-huh. Yes, Paul.
I don't know the scope of each speaker, but if Mr. Johnson, I think none of us, we want to be careful not to have not only notable people, but people have to speak at length on a subject matter. We don't want two of them on the same month.
Right.
And my thought was particularly with the solar, where I think it's good. Obviously, it's good when different departments come in and speak to us. It fosters a better relationship. But some of these items can be done in a smaller group. And, I'm not very skilled at a lot of things, but the solar piece, I have a little bit of knowledge on. So perhaps what we ought to do is meet with him prior to the July meeting, for a couple of reasons. It seems like the same old excuse, oh, we didn't design it in. It's like, well, it's 2021. When are you going to start thinking about this stuff? So I'm thinking maybe we should meet with them, and not to run on too long here, guys, but the other side is the Annapolis Solar Park, I think, is an excellent example of where you can get a lower cost. I don't care if someone doesn't have solar on their roof because maybe their roof's too small and all those things, or the buildings, it's of decent size, but it's not huge. Whereas if the city is buying their solar generated energy from the solar park, that's 80 acres, and you get significant economy of scale as opposed to paying people to go up and mount it on a roof. So while I'm a big fan of solar, there is something to be said. Larger scale, what they call community solar, could be more cost effective than putting it on a roof itself. So if push comes to shove and it's even, you'd say let's have it on city stuff, because when there's a brownout, when we get a temperature that rivals British Columbia at 120 degrees and the place melts, having solar and backup batteries is going to be a lifesaver, literally. So there's something to be said for having that backup, but so it goes into different things. But if the cost is significantly more than what the city's paying for the community solar park, we shouldn't be paying wildly too much for solar. So I'd like to meet with them sooner than the July meeting and dig into this.
Sure, I think we can set up a meeting and just get his, response on solar. Does anybody else want to be in on that meeting?
Well, I wonder if it could be, it feels like we want to talk to him about more than that. So I wonder if it could be the conversation about the stormwater fee, solar. And I did see on the development list that the 39 Hudson has changes to make. I wondered if anybody had pulled it or knew what it was. I wondered if anybody had looked at that, but it could be that we want an update on the building more than solar.
Right. I believe the original discussion we had was about, in order to uphold the integrity of the Environmental Commission and the integrity of the Resiliency Sustainability Division of the Mayor's Office, and our very extensive goals for being sustainable in our city, to try to go for as many sustainable type credits that can be literally and fit on the property, state of the art from top to bottom. I mean, since it's
we did write a letter that had encompassed everything that any of us could think of, and he did spend a lot of time with us in the meeting last summer. It might have been before he joined, Randy, I'm not sure. But he spent a lot of time with us going over that. I mean, it was probably like a whole hour of our meeting. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some things that they just couldn't do. But so yeah, I think we could probably, you know, Paul, I think it's probably a good idea to have a discussion with him about solar, and then also about that Annapolis Solar Park, and really find out what the cost difference is. And, you know, we're making a resiliency plan, and that should absolutely be part of it, you know, energy resiliency and security. So I could see us meeting with him, you know, before the July meeting, and then having him come to the July meeting and you know, give us his answer about solar. And then I really want him to talk about the stormwater fee as well at that meeting. Because I think you know, that's something that's interested in.
I know I haven't really talked, I may have mentioned this before, but I really like the idea of having a few lecture halls in the facility, or just office space that can be used for when, say, maybe they want to host tours or who knows? I mean, if there's a lot of environmental impacts on the site, I'm sure there could be a spot where local school systems could do tours at, or even if you want to just show off your facility.
I thought there was a conference room that the public could use. Am I recalling that correctly? And do you remember that? Do you not?
I don't remember. It's been too long. Sorry.
I kind of, yeah, I think our letter is probably in the Google Drive, but I thought there was a conference room being planned that the public could use for meetings. Yeah, so because I thought we were thinking about, hey, we could meet there one day, you know? Yeah. So let me just get the sense of the commission. You do want to invite Director Johnson to the July meeting, but are you okay with us having a pre-meeting with him if Paul wants to meet with him on solar and really get some of those facts out for us?
I think we probably could, it could be one and the same. So if he's free beforehand and you and Paul can meet with him, but also meet on stormwater and some of these other things, and you could bring it back to the rest of us, that seems fine. Whichever you'd rather. I think Paul was trying to free up more time for other guests in July.
Right.
Just showing a little bit of self-awareness. If I start talking or digging into something, it's not going to be, it's going to eat up too much time in a group meeting.
Yeah,
so I'm a big fan of myself, and whoever else wants to join me, dig in deep and then consolidate and give you a summary. And then things like the stormwater, which is, I don't want to say a bigger project or touches what it's a different topic. So yes, I'd like to meet with him, and if anyone on the commission, or if you have friends who are knowledgeable in the field of solar, I'm happy to go with other people. And in summary, I just want to dig into, like, what do we pay from the solar park, and what's it going to cost to put stuff on roofs? And if it's not a whole lot more expensive, we should also be putting it on the roof. But, you know, I don't want to be silly, stupid, and overspend.
Right. And then we should definitely ask Jackie to come to that meeting, because she is drafting the resiliency plan, and that's definitely should be part of our resiliency mix, is energy, energy security and energy. Yeah.
Yeah, but and can I just, to be clear, Paul, part of why the solar park power is less expensive is because the solar attributes of the power are retained by the developer and sold to other entities. So we kind of classify it as if it's from the grid, even if it's produced here. So if the goal is to make that particular building carbon neutral or reduce its environmental impact, we would need to retain the solar attributes of the power in addition to purchasing it through the solar farm or a solar farm or whatever it is. So
I agree with you 100%. And all I'm saying is I want to quantify, not for all the people listening here, but the naysayers, or there's still a notable architect in town who says, we priced out solar, it's not cost efficient. And, now he told me that 5 years ago, and I said, when did you do it? 5 years ago. He did it a decade ago. So my point is, and I want to quantify and say, okay, we know the number, or it's easy to determine the number paid from the solar park, and that is, let's call it X. So what's it going to cost to put it on the roof? And I agree with you 100%, you know, because when we have a major brownout, the solar is going to be worth a ton of, it's going to pay off in spades. But I want to know if it's 1.1X or 1.2, then we can make a case. And if they say it's going to be 2X, it's like, well, maybe we should use our money elsewhere. So all I'm trying to say is I want to quantify it, and my, not suspicion, my gut tells me putting solar on the city's roof is not going to be inordinately expensive.
Yeah.
And we just need to drag everybody to the modern day and say, you guys, get on this. Let go of your old, you know, the price of solar's dropped so much in the last 5 and 10 years.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I'm just trying to quantify the amount.
Yeah, so that's good, because we, you know, it's hard to even make an argument one way or the other. So you're going to quantify the amount, like between buying it from any solar producer or generating it on site from, you know, on the roof.
Correct.
Right, okay, to make that argument that it's cost effective. All right, good, because I mean, we don't have those kind of facts, so it'd be really good to get those kind of facts. All right, so Paul, I will coordinate with you to help set this up, or, you know, ask you to set it up, and invite any of the other AEC members in town that can make it. Or if you have any other expert friends who are experts in solar, please offer them up.
Okay.
Okay. Then we could have a, you know, a quick conversation on solar with Director Johnson in July. And then, and maybe after we hear from Eric, we can decide whether we want to invite Kate Fritz to talk about the county comp plan stuff. Okay, any more comments on that? Okay. Oh, is that Paul's hand? But Paul, your hand isn't up anymore, is it?
No, it's down now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and if I don't see your hand up, just chime in, you all, because I'm trying to look at a couple different things at the same time. So Kate, did you have information on any developments, or anybody else have information on restoration? I know, Kate, you said you had some development.
I do, yes. So I have a couple of updates. I think there's only one thing that needs our attention at this moment. So I'll probably start with that one. The Parole Place, it's a, I believe, townhomes, mixed use building. So I guess they've got an approved forest FSD, but there's a number of environmental concerns that the city has. So I think we should look at it as a board and see if we want to sort of reinforce those. I'm not exactly sure the nature of them, but I also know that there's some public access issues there with wanting to keep that property connected to other roads and things. So there's that issue as well. So has anyone else been following that project? I think it's right over, I can't think of how to describe where it is, but Parole, obviously.
Place. I'm not sure where that is. Yeah.
Okay, well, we can, so I think point of that is, I think we should review that and send some comments, because there does seem to be some environmental concerns with the tree clearing for that. There's some other development projects that are just ongoing. So the Primrose School, it's on the corner of Spa Road and Hilltop Road, I think, where that convenience store is. They have revised their plans, and they're going to save 3 sycamore trees and this better quality section of forest. So that's positive. And then they are replanting 1-for-1 on site. And then the Kitty Academy is this daycare center. They were going to be located on Forest Drive, but now they've moved to West Street. So I don't know what's happening with the prior location on Forest Drive. They had already cleared the trees though, so so that's we had previously commented on Kitty Academy.
Right. And where are they moving on West Street? I'm trying to think.
It says 1919 West Street. I don't know if that's, I'm assuming that's, oh, it's by McDonald's kind of.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that doesn't see on West Street, it probably doesn't have any trees on it, does it?
No, it just looks like it's probably like they're repurposing redevelopment. Yeah. So that shouldn't be a problem from our angle. So
yeah.
It might be that big red barn on West Street, you know, that's been woefully under occupied.
Oh.
And then the final one is the Providence Point Crystal Spring. They are still, I heard that they're still incorporating the city's comments and the comments from the Scenic Rivers Land Trust, who's going to hold the easement on a portion of the property. And they're going to submit after they've incorporated all the comments, they're going to submit a revised application. I don't know when that is, but it sounds like that plan of doing the easement is still going to happen, which is good. Obviously, we would prefer that they not build anything there, but if they're going to build something, at least they would protect the remainder of the property. So, so anyway, in summary, I will look at Parole Place in more detail. It seems like that's the only active project that we would really want to comment on right now.
All right. Any questions or comments for Kate?
Kate, thank you. Kate and I both saw Gerald Weingrad last week, and Gerald was very positive about Crystal Springs. He was very happy, and you know, he's like, apparently there's going to be no retail. Larry is speaking to him. They're working, and Gerald's as happy as he's ever been with the thing. So, you know, a decade of Gerald, Diane Butler, and many other people's effort finally paid off, because they really did turn around what was going to be a monstrosity.
Yeah. And I've been on this commission for 8 years, and I got into it in the thick of that, you know, back and forth with Crystal Springs when they wanted to take out many, many acres of forest and really build out that whole site. So it will be a pleasure to see a submission that actually can work for the city and work for the developers as well. And I wish we had gotten there a lot earlier, you know?
Yeah.
I think at the real lack of failure to communicate on the part of the city and set expectations, and that's not quite fair to developers when they do that too, when they let them think they're going to be able to build every inch of a property out, and then reality hits and they can't do that. So so that's huge effort. So it'll be great to see a good application that will actually pass muster there.
Bevan, I was wondering at some point tonight if I could bring up the Lincoln Drive rain garden issue, and I didn't know if this would be appropriate or if you wanted me to hold it until the end of the agenda.
Sure. I mean, it sounds like it's a restoration project, so this is development and restoration. So sure, please have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Bevan, and thanks, Kate, for that development review. So just so everybody knows, I had someone who lives in Ward 3 reach out to me. They live in the neighborhood that is between Chinkopin, off of Forest Drive, between Chinkopin and South Cherry Grove on Lincoln. Well, I don't remember the name of the road that goes into it, but he lives on Lincoln Drive. And there is a rain garden there that was constructed with the Arundel Rivers Federation and the Spa Creek Conservancy. And in some form of participation with the city, there's signage there that says it's an environmental waypoint. It has the city's logo on it, as well as the environmental commission's logo. And basically it is on private property, but the issue that has come up over the years is maintenance. And I know this is something that we've talked about before, is maintenance of BMPs around the city, both on city property and private property. And the neighbors in the neighborhood, it's become overgrown, there's trash in it. And now the neighbors have requested, some neighbors, not all, have requested that the property owner pave it over. And according from what I have gathered from the maintenance agreement, that is allowed. That is something that was, if it's not maintained, he can do what he wants with it. So I just wanted to bring that up because there is sort of it's right at the headwaters of Spa Creek, literally right there. It's draining about 2 acres of industrial area off of Chinkopin, all impervious, all in the industrial area. And so I think if something, does happen there, it could be a negative. And I think there's a real opportunity there. And I don't fault either of the nonprofits that have worked there, because I've talked with both representatives from both organizations who said we have tried for years at that site. We have replanted it multiple times. We have had weeding crews, we've had maintenance crews. So I was just wanted to bring that up just so people know about the issue that's going on there and sort of this imminent threat of pavement.
Very bad, yeah.
I'm not sure who among us is the Spa Creek Conservancy liaison. I am the liaison for Arundel Rivers Federation. So if whomever of our group represents Spa Creek Conservancy wants to get together with me, and maybe we can, Jeremy, is that you?
Yeah, I think that's me, but been a while since I've touched base with Amy.
Yeah, so, and Jackie is aware of this as well, and she put me in touch with the city's stormwater engineers when we were trying to sort of sort through the history of this site and this project. So, Jeremy, if you're game, I'd love to sort of tag up with you and maybe we can chat. I'm not sure how much more interest they have in going down that road again, but maybe we could try and convince the city to try and get an easement on that site so that the maintenance would be a little bit of less of an issue, or trying to discuss some other creative options, because there are people who live in the neighborhood who don't want to see that paved over.
So Allison, what's the issue there? I know you said there's trash there, but are the plants that they've replanted not growing? Are they dying? Or what's the issue? Like,
I'm not sure the last time it was actively planted, but I do know when I went to visit it, it was very, very overgrown. They have, since I visited about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Spa Creek Conservancy did pay to get it cleared out and mowed out. And there has been talk over the years about maybe we just plant a monoculture of something that'll just fill it in, because the maintenance of weeding and trying to maintain the plants that are planted there, I think, has been the issue. But as I understand right now, it's just sitting there cleared out. It's just empty.
Yeah. Is there standing water? Is that why people want to pave? I mean, is it like breeding mosquitoes or something?
It's full of trash, overgrown. They're saying they're worried about, I'm not sure how this is related, but the other concern that I heard was people are worried about crime because it has like a pathway through it where people can access the neighborhood from the upper industrial area. I'm not sure how paving would help that, but
easier to get back there and do crime, I guess.
Yeah. So I think people are just thinking that it's an eyesore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I wonder where Greenvest comes into this, because they have everything, like prioritized and mapped out. And I think maintenance is supposed to be part of what they are planning for as well. So,
Kevin?
Yeah.
Greenvest is looking at all BMPs in the city that we have maintenance agreements for. And they're rating them right now on the quality of each BMP, whether or not they need repair or not. I think as we move forward, I think that Green Vest would take care of maintenance for BMPs that belong to the city, but this is a BMP that's on private property. So, I mean, if they can find a maintenance agreement with it and they can make contact with the owner of the property, then we might be able to count it toward our IAT credits. But again, it's on private property, so their hands are sort of tied as far as maintenance goes.
And what's the IAT credits? Is that the?
Impervious acres treated.
Okay, so that's for the TMDL, right?
For the MS4.
Yeah.
And Racine, would the homeowner be, if the BMP is checked or included, eligible for the tax credit?
Well, that's a discussion that,
if it was
as
functional.
a matter of fact, I thought the commission, the environmental commission, has talked about whether or not they if it's required and you're meeting your requirement, then you shouldn't get a credit. The credit would come in if you go above and beyond, or if you install a BMP on your own. I don't know right now. As far as I know, if someone has a BMP on their property, whether or not it's required or not, if they apply for that credit, I think they still would qualify for it as it stands.
Maybe that is a motivation that we can bring to the property owner.
Yeah.
Folks, well, I'm interrupting. I apologize. I screwed up my audio. Without repeating everything, is it the reason this area is stressed is it not a good area for environmental, or was it just lack of willpower maintenance following through, or is there some hurdle that makes it not optimum?
That I'm not sure. I haven't done any sort of background on looking at soil types or anything like that. And I have not privy to any of the planting plans for what has happened there before, or even when the last time it was planted. I just know when I went to visit, it was all weeds, some trash. So maybe Tony and I can get some of that history of what's been tried there.
Yeah, if you guys could dig into that and get back to us on that, and maybe they need a different design for this, and it's got to be something simpler that's lower maintenance or something. But I mean, paving would be absolutely the worst option.
Yeah, and so if this is, I'm just looking at the map and realizing that, oh, I'm looking at the street view and seeing what I believe is what we're talking about, because it's just right in the road, or what would be the road, right? This is the one we're talking about. Just kind of separates the one side of Lincoln Drive from the other one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's,
that's
I don't think
square at the end of the street. Yeah.
A tiny little footprint thing like that's just, it's surrounded by impervious surface. I don't think it has much chance to do well. But yeah, I mean, I'll gladly dig into this with you. I haven't been down that road, so I didn't realize this was even there.
Okay. All right, thanks, you two. Let's see, where are we? Oh, anything else for restoration? Okay, well, we are right on time, 7:45. We're gonna do the legislation review.
I have one quick thing.
Okay.
I can talk about it now because CBT did a press event last week. But just in case you did not know, the city did receive a grant for $65,000 from Chesapeake Bay Trust for the Hawkins Cove project. And this is going to cover hiring a consultant that's going to help produce a conceptual plan, as well as assist us with additional outreach to residents in the city, with a focus on the residents that are closest to the project itself. So we're moving ahead slowly but surely.
Great. Any questions for Racine on that?
Racine, I think that we pledged to do, support you all with it, but I think it was sort of more like next steps around outreach. So will you just tell us if we have homework now that you have the grant?
As far as outreach goes?
Yeah.
And I think in our letter, we also offered technical services. I don't know, but we wrote a letter in support of the grant that offered.
Right. Jackie told me about that. So let me check with Jackie. I'm not sure what answer to give you, but let me check with Jackie and we can talk about it next meeting. How's that?
And then Racine, how do you go about selecting a contractor to do the outreach? Is that a bid thing? Is there an RFP put out for that?
I believe because of the amount, it would have to be an RFP put out for it.
Okay, could you send that around to the commission members when you put that out to public?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Jackie. We were just talking about the Hawkins Cove and the grant that you all got. Great, good job for Hawkins Cove to do the outreach and the conceptual plan. And we were wondering if that would go out to an RFP, out by RFP. And
Yeah, it has to because of the amount.
Right. And could you send that around to us so we could send it to our contacts that might want
Yeah, when we develop that, I have to meet with Mike Johnson about this because this becomes at this point a public works project. And so I'm going to sit down with him to talk about next steps on it.
Okay, so is Public Works going to select the person doing the outreach or the firm, whatever, doing the outreach, or the company?
More than likely, because as I said, this should be a public works project and I have to hand things over to Mike, and I've already given him access to the grant so we can start looking at it.
Okay. All right, yeah, could you just let us know and when you send it out or when the RFP is released or?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Will
any
do.
more questions about that, comments? So Jackie, are you looking, you probably don't even know yet because you haven't written the criteria yet, but are you looking for one company to do the planning and the outreach? Or what are you planning when you
we probably not, most likely not. And the outreach is a question of how we're going to handle that. If we have handed over to a professional, if we hand it over to a professional with heavy input from staff because of our familiarity with the communities involved, or if it's going to be staff driven like it was when we did the preliminary research. And we did put in our concept for the proposal that we anticipated using a professional, but there's been discussion in the mayor's office about whether that's necessary or not. If we didn't hire a professional, that we could put more money towards the actual design and construction. This isn't just for the concept plan. This is for construction as well, because the trust at least thinks that we should be able to construct the living shoreline part of it and the boat launch part of it with the money they gave us, because it's not a very large area. And what takes up a lot of money usually on living shorelines is the rock, and this shouldn't involve potentially any rock because there's very little wave action, on this one. So, that was Jana Davis's, the executive director's take on it, that we wouldn't need that much money for design and construction. And she even thought there'd be some money for the outreach part. So that's a topic for discussion, more discussion internally about whether we're going to hire someone for outreach.
Okay. All right. Questions?
Is this the cove over in West Annapolis we were speaking about a few weeks ago?
No.
This is in Eastport, behind the HACA headquarters off of Madison Street, and next to Primrose. Primrose that divides Hawkins Cove from Truxton Park.
Well, thank you. Maybe not any, but in many places where we need community outreach, I'm a huge fan of Annapolis Green. So they have mixers now that we're hopefully in a post-COVID world. They have mixers at different places, and some are funky, some are normal, and then some are
Well, this is more about engagement, like getting the right, making sure that the surrounding communities, especially the lower income communities who don't come to meetings and don't come to mixers and don't read the website, you know, are actively, their opinions and thoughts are actively sought. At least they're educated and aware. So,
and I know you all did more, you know, outreach, like, you know, in-person outreach, but the 2 Zoom meetings I went to, there were very, very few. I mean, there might've been 1 or 2 people from those HACA communities. So I do think there needs to be more outreach to them, and you might want to engage somebody to do that. That's
right. So we would have preferred to have done in-person meetings in the buildings in some of those community centers in those lower income neighborhoods and HACA properties, but COVID prevented that. We were shut down. We were told that we can't do that. So now that we're past that, I think there's better opportunities for doing the in-person kind of meeting.
Right, and I think we should continue to do outreach to that community, and now that we can probably have some in-person, maybe outside meetings, that you'll get a better uptake, and it might be, you know, really wise to get somebody who's that community to do that.
Even if it means having to do it on the weekends down at Hawkins Cove, you know, get the people who live there down there so they can see what we're talking about and when they might be more available. But we might have to do that.
Right.
Who is the alderperson for that area?
Is that, I'm trying to think which ward that is. Is that 5 or I have to pull up our ward map to look at that.
Well,
no,
Dewan's? I'm not sure.
It might be part of Dewan's and it might be part of Ross's because it's Eastport.
Well, regardless of which alderperson, we all get the point. It would be a good thing for an alderperson. I mean, it behooves them to, you know, press flesh with the local voters, and it's something that what alder people help do is make their communities better.
Right, if that can get more people out to give their ideas and opinions on that, then that might be fruitful to get them involved. And I think both alder people, Ross and Dewan, were both at the Zoom meeting, so I don't think there's a problem getting them to attend those outreach meetings. Yeah. A good point. Thanks. All right. Well, just please send us that RFP when it comes out.
Okay.
We can share it around with our contacts. So I wanted to move on to legislation because I had I reviewed the Climate Resiliency Authority. I'm just going to shrink this and pop up. Can you all see that on the screen, all my comments in red?
We see the agenda.
It hasn't come up yet.
Oh, okay. Shoot. All right. Well,
sometimes you have to like sort of unshare and share if you choose a particular document or application rather than.
I've got to make the Zoom bigger now. Oh, I keep making it smaller. Oh, here. Okay. I don't know. All right. Well, I sent you all my comments on this. I'll try to make this bigger and share it. Okay. I don't know. Can't get it bigger now.
I have it pretty handy.
Oh wait. Okay. I'm gonna stop the share. I will share the screen again. Okay. There it is. This should work. All right, so I don't know if you all got a chance to, oh, you can see it, thanks. Chance to look at all the comments I made. And I kind of just went through the whole piece of legislation and put comments all embedded in there. So I pulled out a bunch of the comments, you know, the main points of the comments of this Resiliency Authority. And this is to fund resilience, you know, infrastructure for the city. And it's a joint body. It's a corporate body and a body politic, which I'm not sure, you know, what this thing is, but it's a joint authority between the city and the county to fund infrastructure, resilience infrastructure. So I just want to run through the concerns I had in general that I think we should bring up for discussion on this. And the top line concern is creating a funding entity when the city and the county don't yet have a plan. So I'm really concerned when these funding entities get created. I mean, they generally like to keep themselves going and alive, and they'll just keep finding things to fund. And we saw that with the Stadium Authority many years ago. So I'm concerned that we don't have a plan. We don't know what we're funding yet, and the scope could grow and grow and grow. So in the staff report that Jackie wrote, it was specifically about energy infrastructure, water infrastructure, transportation infrastructure. It was specifically named, but it wasn't specifically named in the actual legislation. So I'm concerned we don't have a plan yet. We don't know what we're asking this funding entity to do, and they're going to balloon into a gigantic, never-ending piece of bureaucracy that could be rather expensive.
And Bevan, before we get too far, I do just want to clarify, as I know the county has passed their bill, and they had their signing ceremony and everything. And I've missed the committee meetings here in the city. Environmental Matters Committee in May, I believe, talked about the bill. But all I know from the website is that the bill is still in committee. But in interest of when we get to what our action will be, I just want to I need clarification about who we're providing comments to at this point. Are we providing it straight to the mayor and the council, or to one of the committees? What is our feedback going to be? Where's it going to be directed?
If this commission wants to make comments, they should submit them now to the mayor and to the city council.
Yeah.
Because the next meeting of the city council, I guess the second meeting I'm trying to think of the next meeting, the second one in July will be public testimony.
Okay.
So you could submit, of course, you want to submit it ahead of time, your written comments. Also, you can send them directly to the mayor and the city manager. Copy me on them, please, though, because that's an extra step for David to get them to me. And then you should also think about having someone testify before city council. Now, I can go through these, give some general responses to some of these concerns that you expressed if you wish me to.
All right, well, let me just run through them first, and then you can respond to some of them. So this also creates a company to perform work rather than saying that they're going to contract with, those major contractors out there that do all this resiliency work. So it indicates that they're going to do the work themselves. So I'm kind of going, this is sounding really, really expensive. We have AECOM, Stantec, all these engineering firms were already working on this. So I'm kind of going, why do we need to create our own in-house firm to do this? So that's another concern. It also says that our authority is going to own and regulate property. So this is property that's otherwise would be owned and regulated by the city or county. So who's going to be regulating this property? So that's unclear. It's also giving them authority to charge two fees, one to fund the administration of the authority and all the employees that they're going to hire. It doesn't say how many employees they will be hiring. And also charge us a fee for the project. So I'm very concerned that when I talk to the mayor and I talk to several aldermen, they say, oh, we're not going to be paying any fee. Nobody said they're going to charge a fee, and they've all said in the newspaper, our tax money's not paying for this. So I'm not sure that they understand that the only way this authority is going to be able to get money to issue bonds is to have a revenue stream, a dedicated, solid revenue stream, and that they're going to be charging us a fee, and they're an unelected body. So I'm really concerned about that, and I'm concerned that our mayor and aldermen don't seem to convey that to the public. So there was a lack of, I already mentioned, lack of clear description of the resiliency infrastructure actually is. Staff report said it was transportation, energy, water. So that's more specific. Concerned about this, the city and the mayor only having consultative authority on a lot of pieces of this, the administration of this, like the selection of the director, I think the firing of the director, the dissolution of the authority, the amendments to Articles of Incorporation. So a lot of a lot of it gives you the county executive authority and then consultative authority by the mayor. So I just feel like it's really heavily weighted on the county side. Also, I think 9 members are appointed by the county executive, 3 by the mayor.
Bevan, I'm sorry
yeah.
to stop you. Could I just ask, could everybody take a second and go on mute if you're not already? I'm having a little trouble hearing Bevan over the background. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. So then there's a clause that says the obligations of the Resiliency Authority are to be transferred to and assumed by the county and the city of Annapolis if they are dissolved. So I think, you know, if we're going to take on their obligations, which are the debts, frankly, the city and the county should have to approve all the obligations, the debts that they take on, and for the projects. And also any property that's in the city boundary should be going to the city, and property in the county boundary should be going to the county, you know, if this is dissolved. Also, I feel really strongly they need to specify that there has to be some minority representation on this authority. That's not called out or, you know, called for at all in the legislation. And I do think, you know, globally and in our country and probably in our city, that the impacts of climate change are going to be disproportionately felt by our minority and underrepresented community. So I think they need to be at the table when these decisions about which projects are getting done are being made. Also, the city assistant manager on resilience and sustainability should be included, and that was in Jackie's report as well. And the director, they calls for them to have business experience, but I really think they need to have infrastructure finance experience, because that's what this whole thing is about. And I'm also concerned about the impact of the city bond rating, because the bond agencies consider, you know, not only the taxes that we have to pay, but also these mandatory fees that we're going to have to pay. So I think that could impact our bond rating. And I just wanted to mention that a good thing that I saw in there was they had a conflict of interest clause, and I really thought that was a good thing. So Jackie, I'll leave this up. So if you want to respond to some of this.
Yeah, thanks. No, I don't mean to convince anyone or advocate for any one position. I just think it'd be great for me to jump in here to inform you before you have a discussion. So let me see, let me jump. Okay, so it's a quasi-governmental entity, a separate entity from the city and the county, and it would identify. Initially, we understand that the public works and other departments of the city and county would be identifying projects which they would propose to this entity to evaluate, prioritize, and decide whether they could fund them and then go about finding funding for them. So initially, yes, we think that there would have, not we think, but there would have to be fees imposed to do some initial funding. However, the county is already going to put up $500,000. They have that available to them, and they're asking the city for $150,000. There is COVID relief money that the county has, of which the city can share in. And this county has asked us, you know, is there a project you would identify to use some of this money? And, you know, one logical approach might be to use some of that money for our seed money for the Resilience Authority. That's not for sure. That's kind of being floated around. You know, we're trying to define what kind of money we can come up with and what we think is a right amount of money to put in. But the county has asked us for $150,000 and trying to offset some of their $500,000. So that's where the initial administrative seed money comes in, to hire an executive director and a chief financial officer and have some office space. Later, the executive director will start hiring others as the need arises, as they start to flesh out this entity. This legislation follows the state enabling legislation largely. It's tailored, you know, tweaked a bit to fit the city and the county. But otherwise, it pretty much follows the enabling legislation. Yes, there may be fees in the future, might be identified by the Resilience Authority to fund projects or to hire more people or whatever it needs. But the idea is once it gets going, it is supposed to make that a last resort to ask for additional fees to be imposed to raise money for it to run. Rather, it's going to be seeking its own funding sources. Federal, state monies, grant money, private investments is, a big part of it. So, and to keep it running, it's supposed to pursue that. And that's one big task of the chief financial officer and
Jackie,
executive
let me
director.
just ask you about that. Like, if they're issuing bonds, they need some revenue to repay those bonds.
Right. So
where
anything
is
that any
revenue
bonds
going to come from?
So, and that's a good question. That's part of what they've got to figure out. But if there is any if there's any debt obligation or bond obligation on either the city or the county, it has to go through the respective councils for approval before they can do that. And that's as far as I know. So at this point, if this is much more of a framework that will be fleshed out further as the Resilience Authority gets going. And in their first report, they will be making recommendations not only on projects and on funding and financing and the funding and financing they've identified, but also on changes that they might recommend being made to the structure of the Resilience Authority, including those recommended by the city or council. So if the city has ideas for amendments to it, such as giving the mayor more of a say in certain decisions, then they can recommend that to the Resilience Authority, and it can include that in its first annual report. And then those changes could be adopted by the city and the county council.
That's
because
not what the legislation says, Jackie. The legislation says the county executive can offer amendments to the Articles of Incorporation, but the mayor can't. The mayor can just like say yes or, and I don't know what happens if
with concurrence of the mayor. So it has to be with concurrence. The mayor can't do it alone. The mayor has to concur. However, in most respects where there's county executive making decisions, it says with the concurrence of the mayor. I pointed out early on in this process to both our legal departments that there were inconsistencies, and I felt that they were technical changes that needed to be made, so that every time the county executive made a decision, it had to be with concurrence of the mayor, because I said it doesn't make sense that in some instances there's concurrence of the mayor, but there's not in others. Well, they chose to disregard that recommendation and went their own way. Now I've gone back and reminded them of this and how that could be seen as unfair, especially by the city council, since the county's already passed it. And they understand, and they think, yes, those were good ideas. Why they didn't do it in the first place, I don't know. So they said, well, that could be corrected later, is what the answer I've been given on that.
Yeah, we had a situation a couple of years ago where the mayor of the city wouldn't even talk to the county executive. So,
right.
I don't think we should pass something that says the mayor just gets concurrence on it. Like they can't even bring up an amendment. They don't have the authority to do that.
The amendment, I asked the respective offices of law. It was we're allowed to make non-substantive amendments and technical amendments, but if city council proposes, passes, and legislation with what are considered substantive amendments, then this whole thing dies.
No, I'm talking about the legislation says that the mayor cannot bring up amendments to the Articles of Incorporation. They don't have that authority to do that. They can only just say, yes, we agree with the county executive. And I think that's incredibly weak.
I don't know if that's correct. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it because I don't think that's correct. I think it says with the concurrence of the mayor.
Yeah, but it says that it doesn't say the mayor can bring up
on his own is what you're saying.
Right. The county with concurrence of the city of Annapolis may adopt amendments to the Articles of Incorporation. The amendments proposed by the county executive and approved by the resolution of the county council.
So you're just saying the mayor should be able to propose an amendment. So that's an amendment that the county city council can recommend to the Resilience Authority that should be changed. And they can include that in their report and their recommendations in the first year that they exist. And that's the best we can do at this point, because if we do anything substantive, and that's considered substantive, I vetted a lot of these questions already with the attorneys, then the whole thing dies. I did in my staff report.
I really don't like being put in a box where it's like, we have to pass exactly what they passed. I mean, they passed it, they can have their own, authority, and then we can work out like whether they want to,
But that's the position we're in, Devin.
Yeah.
And if we had passed ours first, they would be saying the same thing. So it's kind of whoever went first.
Well, actually, I've done this before, Jackie, with a law between Maryland and Virginia. And, we worked out all the fine details and got it in exactly the same form before we proposed it and passed it. So I think we're doing this kind of backwards, where it's like,
it would have been nice if that had happened, but that's not what happened. And as I said, I am just responding to these, telling you what information I have. I'm not advocating, and I'm not trying to convince you guys. I'm just giving you information. I did in my staff report say that since we have the position of Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, that should be included in the non-voting advisory members. And the city is making that amendment. The county is fine with that amendment. They don't consider it substantive.
Okay.
We fully, believe that Matt and I will be at every meeting anyway. Matt Johnston, the Director of Environmental Policy for the county, but David and Gerald agreed, and the mayor agreed that should be in there since we have the position. And then as far as qualifications, that's another thing that I brought up early on, but everyone thought, oh no, we don't have to put that in there. The qualifications for the positions of the Board of Directors of the Resilience Authority. That is something that is going to be upon the executive director's shoulders to define make a job description for what the members should look like as far as background, experience, and representing the communities in terms of what our makeup is as far as male, female, minorities, etc., but also with a big emphasis on their experience and especially in these types of matters. And then, of course, the job description for the executive director has to be fleshed out. That has to be somebody, as you mentioned, that has experience in the resilience arena and in funding resilience projects. I think it's extremely important. Then you have impact to city bond rating. Yeah, that's a concern. And as far as the authority, yes, it says that they can own and regulate property. It doesn't necessarily have to be property that would otherwise be owned or regulated by the city or county. It could be private property that they acquire. And then any projects that are resilience projects have to be permitted through city or county departments. As if they fall in the county, they have to be permitted by the county. If they fall in the city, they have to be permitted by the city. And
why would they need to own their own property? I mean, they're using our fees to do it. So why do they need to own their own property?
I don't know the answer to that question unless that.
I mean,
they're acquiring. There's some need to acquire private property in order to do a project. I don't. I think they're trying to be as broad as possible in what their powers are and what they can do. Let's see what else you have in here.
I mean, I would prefer them starting out with not having the power to own property and then seeing if they actually need that power, because why wouldn't the city just own the property or the county own the property? I mean.
And then as far as debts, of course, as I mentioned, any debts have to be approved by the city and the county respectively. And then what happens with the property? Let's say the Resilience Authority operates for 5 years and then the whole thing dissolves. Where are the debt obligations or assets? Where do they go? And I think if the easiest answer is if it's a city or a county project and there are debt obligations with respect to it, it goes to the respective local jurisdiction.
That's not what it says. So right there, all it says is the obligations go to the county and the city. It's like, what?
I know that's what it says, but that was what has been explained to me by the attorneys as the intent.
Right, but the intent, if the intent's not written, then it doesn't have to be followed.
And that's kind of what I've been struggling with, Jackie, and I was hoping that you would be able to clarify, like, is this standard language? Because there is that limitation provision towards the end of the legislation saying that bonds issued by the authority are limited and not a pledge of the faith and credit of the county or the city. And yet, if the authority dissolves, all that's debt and all those assets revert to the county or the city, and all the bonds would have to be approved by the county council or the city council. So I just can't wrap my head around that as to like how that's the obligations are not the pledge of the faith and credit of the city or the county, and yet if it folds, it comes.
So it seems like in the end, we are backing them up, right?
Okay, so I had, when I first started working with the county on this in the city office of law, I had a lot of comments on this because as a lawyer, this drove me crazy that it doesn't have the level of detail that we would put in it. We want everything accounted for. But I was told that no, this needs to be broad and it's a framework document and it's following the enabling legislation, and that you have to trust in the process, that this is something that will evolve over the first year especially and get fleshed out more. Now, we can include more details in the bylaws. So the bylaws can cover a lot more, including job descriptions, where the debt goes, how obligations are approved. All of that can be put in the bylaws. So there is an opportunity, because the bylaws have to be drafted still, obviously, to put a lot more detail in there.
So, Anne, go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Thanks. Thanks. I think, Jackie, you're getting to what my question is, and that some of these concerns that Bevan raised at the last meeting, you said were sort of concerns shared by some of the committees that this had gone before and were part of ongoing conversations. And so I wonder if it would help us write our letter if we had a better sense for sort of what comes next. So there's bylaws, that like sort of public meeting, public hearing, are they going to be, what would the drafting process look like, and our opportunity for providing feedback? And then again, maybe what you envision is the process over the first year. So we could make some comments that, should they not be included in the authority vote, could get included in the bylaws, or we could sort of request that they would be, because I take Bevan's point that it's sort of, we're in this awkward position where it sort of feels like there isn't a place for our comments to go, because if we make our comments, it could die. And so, maybe you could help us figure out other opportunities where we might insert our questions and comments.
So I would definitely not wait to, it's worth putting them into writing, sending to the mayor and city manager, and putting them into public testimony so that they're on the record and they're in the minds of the council members. In keeping in mind that if we make certain things that will be considered substantive amendments, that this dies. And we really don't, and I agree that I don't think the city can do this on their own. There are many people that may disagree with that, but I don't think we'll be able to raise the capital to do the types of projects that this resilience authority would undertake, and that they have a broader reach, especially to private investment. They can apply for grants on a regional basis that the city on its own is not eligible for. I think that combining the city and the county as a fundraising entity to fund a lot of projects does make sense. So, but I do think that there's a question is who's going to draft the bylaws. So that's a legitimate question. And when will they be drafted? Obviously before this thing can operate, they need bylaws. So some of your comments and your suggestions maybe become part of the bylaws. So that's why I think you should go ahead and get it into the public record. And then during during that first year of operation, as you see how it's starting to operate and evolve, you may continue to make recommendations. You also could very early on, like let's say this gets funded, then you want to get it and you could make it part of the, as something you send to the mayor and the city manager and the county executive. You may want to send them what you consider are the job requirements or, attributes that you think are important in board members, and including what type of representation in the county and the city, as far as gender, et cetera, that you think are important. Because that's going to happen, pretty quickly. It's the first thing, the order of business will be to hire an executive director and put together the board.
And aside from the board, I mean, we've talked so many times at this commission about the importance of like the contracting aspect as well, when they're actually spending money, doing these projects, utilizing, minority owned businesses as well.
Right.
So, but I just making that point, but I also wanted to just, so yeah, we'll have to weigh in on the bylaws, certainly.
Yeah,
We
that
are
could
kind
be
of
in the
boxed in
bylaws.
now, but
Yeah,
aside
man.
from the bylaws, I guess the only other way to adjust the bylaws aside, there's also the opportunity if the county and the city councils would both pass similar amendments or amend this ordinance in the county and the city code, we could also potentially make changes there, or is that just something we want to avoid at all costs and just stick to bylaws?
At this point, there's no opportunity to amend the county. So if the city, let's say the city passes something substantively similar, we can make some technical, what they consider technical amendments, like adding my position on the non-voting advisory. One second. Someone's speaking. And, but the things like giving the mayor the ability to amend the articles of incorporation, I consider that a technical amendment, but they don't. Because I saw that as, in some places it's with the concurrence of the mayor, but in other places it's not. It just seemed unbalanced. And now they kind of get what I'm saying after the fact, it seems, and say, oh, well, we can do that as an amendment in the first year. So then the recommendations that are made could be made as you need to amend the city and the county code to reflect these concerns, addressing these concerns. So I think after it's passed, then we could propose amendments that both the county and the city would have to adopt.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. And
Often, like, legislation doesn't pass on the first year it's out, and I don't think we should feel like we're backed up into a corner to pass this year just because the county passed it. I mean, I really think they need to have minority representation on that, and that's got to be in the establishment documents. And sometimes legislation takes 3 or 4 years to get it right. And I don't feel like that, we've sat down and got our input in before they passed it in the county. So I don't think it would be super harmful to say, this isn't going to pass this year. Let's have a go at it next year. Or, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think jumping into something that we don't know how it's going to work, and we're kind of like giving them carte blanche to like write their own rules. Like, we don't know who's drafting the bylaws. I really want to discuss again, the whole issue about, fees for the projects. This is how these things operate. They charge a fee to residents. That's how they raise money, and that's how they attract grants. Like, what grants are you all looking at getting? All the federal grants and the state grants all have matching requirements. So you need a steady income stream to fund them, and then to do the bonds as well. So several years ago, probably about more than 10 years ago, the city established this business development entity, and they came in with a great song and dance about, fund us with $800,000 the first year, and we won't need any money after that because we're going to raise all our own funds to do all this economic development for the city. They hardly raised any funds. We funded them, mostly fully funded them every year they operated, and we finally closed them down because, they never funded themselves. I mean, it takes matching funds to go out and get all these grants. So I just think it is very, very slim information on how they're going to fund themselves. I think it's definitely going to be a fee. I know that in the city, in your staff report, there was some estimate of what it would cost for the city to, improve and make our infrastructure resilient. I didn't see any estimate for the county. So there ought to be some estimate. What's the fee going to be for the residents? That ought to be super clear and transparent, because right now it hasn't been. I mean, the mayor's in the paper saying it's not going to be paid for by taxpayer dollars. And two aldermen I talked to said, oh, they have authority to charge this fee. That doesn't mean they're going to charge a fee. I don't know if they understand how these entities actually work. And it's clear that to me that they don't.
And just one, I'm really in favor of this idea, like having a resilience authority, but it is a little frustrated kind of being boxed in, and it doesn't inspire confidence to me if, Jackie has raised all these great questions that ultimately didn't get resolved in the legislation. That doesn't inspire confidence that when we're commenting on bylaws or possible amendments down the road, that we're going to get a better response or better clarity. So that's just where I'm at. I really want to support this, but I just have a lot of a lot of annoyance too.
And picking projects. I mean, we're going to be outvoted for everything. We've got 3 members, that county's got 9. So
that was one of my biggest questions, Bevan, is, we've got this structure built in terms of representation, but there's no guarantees that any of the fees that are being charged are going to come back to the city. Like 100% of the projects could happen in the county. At least the way that I read it, there may be some sort of, I feel like there should be some sort of guaranteed breakdown of where the expenditures are going to go.
No, there's no guarantee. You're correct, Allison. The understanding between the city and the county is that City Dock will be the first priority. Addressing the stormwater flooding and doing the City Dock revitalization project will be the first project out of the box.
Yeah, and the only other comment that I had that I think Bevan included in her list as well is what is listed in there as resilience infrastructure. I thought was very limiting. The list is very short, and I thought a little bit overly specific, that it would exclude certain types of projects from consideration. So I thought that could be made a little bit more broad. I think, Bevan, you put something in there like trees or forest conservation or something like that.
it's like includes, but it's not limited to these things.
Here we go. Flood barriers, green spaces. And I think that resilience infrastructure definition was pulled from the state legislation, because I just pulled up the bill for the enabling legislation. And I think that is a little bit, all of that is describes in my mind hard infrastructure.
Yes, I agree, Allison. I think that, it was not interpreted like the way you and I and everybody on this commission sees it as infrastructure is also the green spaces that buffer and absorb and all of that. And the people who were considering this are thinking of hard infrastructure. You're absolutely right on that point.
Yeah.
Should be great.
Building elevation, Bevan's favorite, in terms of talking about who's paying for what and who's benefiting. But yeah.
So I think we can, we can say we're generally in favor of this concept, but we have all these concerns. And
just to let you know, Bevan, this is the plan of City Council is to pass this or not pass this by the end of July before they recess in order to be compliant with 120 days from June 15th when it was signed by the county executive.
All right. So
passed on the 7th, but was signed, I think, of the 17th, something like that.
All right. So we do need to decide on what our position is. And we can say we're in favor of this, the concept, but we have concerns. I don't know. Where are you all? Do you think we should pass it and then just see what happens, or not pass it and work out some more details and go for it again next year? What, does anybody have a suggestion, or should we just express concerns?
Bevan, it's a big meaty topic, and it resonates with me when you say, look, a lot of legislation doesn't pass on the first try. I don't know enough to make a final decision, and I don't think any of us want to be the people holding up projects, but you brought up some good points of control and who gets left holding the bag, financially. So, and surely having to pass it in July, if there's some 120-day deadline, maybe they could, I think we should voice our concerns, be clear on what they are, and keep working with them and see if they can address them. And if it has to be rewritten and another 120-day clock starts, maybe that's okay. I don't know enough, but you brought up some good points. It's a big issue. We shouldn't rush into it.
Okay, how do other people feel?
I'm of two minds because on the one hand, like I really want to see the Resilience Authority happen, and sooner is presumably better. And I can see why it would be nice to have this be a good banner win or feather in the cap for both the county executive and the mayor. But then on the other hand, I do just think this is so important, and it would be so much better to get this right than just like railroad this through as quickly as possible. And so I'm not sure where I feel the commission, where I want to like steer the commission towards versus like where I might offer my own like personal like testimony to the council as a citizen. I might want to be a little more critical as a citizen, whereas the commission, maybe we take a slightly different tack. But I really would love to see this done better. It's not a terrible bill. It's just there's so much ambiguity that just really bugs me.
Yeah, I think the citizen, the general public does not understand that they're going to get charged a fee by an unelected body. And there's no cap on these fees. There's no, estimate of how much we need to spend. I think there's so much that's not understood and not conveyed to the public. I think I would lean towards saying, let's not pass this year, because, and the other thing in my mind is John Hammond was the head of the finance group, the finance committee for City Dock. And I went to all those public meetings, and he stood up at the public meeting and said, all this infrastructure that we need done at City Dock can be funded through conventional funding, through bonds for the city. So I'm not really concerned about, slowing any of that down. We can also get FEMA brick money for that. That's pre-resiliency, pre-mitigation disaster money for flooding. Also the $60 million for the City Dock. I think about, I don't know, that's not all for flooding. A lot of that is for, cosmetic stuff. So we already have installed, and we had grants for the flooding, the pumps, the stormwater pumps, and they're putting them in the playground over there now. So I don't think we need to we don't need to do something this year or nothing will get done. I think I worry also about us doing this not right, and then the public really turns on you when they find out that this is done really well or not done really well. There's a joint authority between New Jersey and New York, and that turned out to be a disaster. And they, I think the New Jersey governor was for dissolving it. And I think let's take the time to get it right, and work with the county and get it right before we pass it.
Well, and Bevan, back to your point from earlier in this meeting about the stormwater fees increasing in the budget, if there's been no explanation yet on how those funds are going to be spent out, like the concept of approving an authority that's going to put on as many as 2 additional fees, it sort of begs the question, like, where is all of this going? And I guess that gets back to what Jackie's working on with the resiliency plan. But if it's not ready for prime time it's a chicken and egg problem, because you need the plan to be ready, but I guess you also need a mechanism to fund the plan once you have the plan.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of the mindset that you need the plan to know what your scope of work is going to be.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel like we need that first to understand what our needs are, and maybe our needs do scale to this level where Resilience Authority makes sense, or maybe they're totally different and can be financed in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I think I really appreciate everyone's work on this and all of your points. I work for a quasi-state agency that was set up in legislation that had a lot of details worked out, but then, you know, we're also governed by rules and by a board, and lots of stuff gets hashed out, you know, after we were set up. So I appreciate what Jackie's saying about the things that happened sort of through the bylaws and rulemaking and, you know, purchasing authority and things like that. I wonder if part of what we could include in the letter, Bevan, are some of those questions about when that will be worked out and by whom, to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes all of that isn't in enabling legislation. I think you all bring up really valid points that, and we could include Allison's, I think Allison took your red line around what constitutes an infrastructure project even further. So we should maybe capture that too.
And I just also add, I worked as a director of development for a government quasi organization, Anne Arundel Community Action Agency for Anne Arundel County, located on West Street, right across from Miss Shirley's. And there was a lot of that, you know, same, from my understanding, is somewhat of the same type of debates or kind of discussions around the particulars. What I would suggest maybe is contacting them and even talking to them and seeing how they maneuver through some of those differences or kind of the relationships that are held between government offices and you know, in the organization. So
what organization are you talking about?
Anne Arundel, the Community Action Agency of Anne Arundel County.
Yeah.
It's on West Street, right across from Miss Shirley's. And it's a government quasi nonprofit organization that services low-income residents throughout the county. They do the energy assistance, and they also house Head Start.
But I guess the thing that maybe separates them from this is they don't have the authority to charge everybody a fee for their services and, you know, for their upkeep and their employees and all that. I mean, they don't have.
They don't charge any services. I mean, they don't charge.
Well, somebody pays for them to operate. So how do they? I mean, they get that probably from the government, right?
No, I'm saying they don't charge service fees for services to the people that they serve. That's the whole point. It's a low-income agency, so they so they don't.
But I'm saying that they don't say, okay, we need to operate our agency, so we're going to charge everybody in the county and the city a fee to keep our agency, to hire our employees and to provide our services.
Yeah, I think that would make no sense.
Right. No, so I'm saying that I don't have much like concerns about how they operate. This body concerns me because they have like basically like taxing authority, but it's called a fee because it's not a tax, and they're not an elected body. And we have no idea how, I mean, there's no cap on the fee. I mean, that really concerns me.
Yeah, what I would say maybe is to try to find a different way to collaborate more innovatively to get the same outcome that you have, but do it in a way that doesn't, like you could use another organization, right?
Right.
To funnel some of that red tape, or cut some of that fat off of it.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
But,
and
yeah.
that gets back to Allison's point about the stormwater fee. So like what other funding opportunities already exist and who could be
Yeah,
the entity that applied for that grant or whatever it is.
yeah. And I think regionalization is ultimately a really good idea. We're only like a couple square miles and the county's way bigger than us. And I've worked with like some entities up in York County, Pennsylvania, where they have a regional stormwater fee. And I think they have like 30 in this. Some of them have MS4s, some of them don't. So they've made a regional plan, but they've started with the plan and they haven't approached a regional fee yet. I mean, that's like the next step for them. So that to me makes a little bit more sense, like knowing what you have to do, what you have to fund, and then go for the fee.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Like
So,
I said,
yeah.
looking at some kind of partnership where it doesn't, it's not typical, but it could serve a purpose that could alleviate that type of, that whole act, that section of it.
Yeah.
By another,
And
by another entity.
we can enter into partnerships with the county and apply for state revolving fund loans to improve our water infrastructure, gray and green. So it's not like we don't need an entity like this. We can just say we're partnering on this project and we're going to apply for this grant. So, and we haven't even done any of those yet. So maybe it'd be good to do one of them and see how it works. So,
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. Kate, did you have any thoughts on this? Where should we go with this?
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I'm sort of speechless because it just seems so bizarre that it's like creating a body to do something without knowing what you want to do. That it's just really backwards. So I guess my question is who is pushing for this and why do they want it? Maybe I missed that, but who's the one who thinks this is really important to do right now?
This was a recommendation of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science and their policy people.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think this recommendation grew out of the city dock plan. That I don't know if that was the one they adopted, but I think it was brought up there and maybe, they said, look into it. And then our senator ran with it and got it passed, enabling authority to do this.
That's accurate, Bevan. That's accurate. That is accurate.
Right. And so it's enabling authority. It means we're allowed to do it. Doesn't mean you have to, but I mean, which it's good to have that authority to do this. All right, well, here's what I propose. I propose we say that we feel like this is not, ripe for passage because there's all these issues that we feel that are not, that could, should be addressed before we jump into this kind of thing. I'm just really concerned that the authority to charge a fee, there's no cap on these fees. There's no cap on, administrative costs. Usually in the legislature, when they start a new program, they say you can only spend 10% on the administration and your staff. There's some kind of boundaries there, So I feel like we should say, this is a good idea, we like it, but it's not quite ripe, and we don't want to be boxed into something that doesn't turn out like really, really well and is successful because, that's, I think, a recipe for disaster. I mean, I wouldn't put that in there, but that's my general sense of things. Like, this is not quite right for passage, and we should work on it together with the county and get it right and then pass it.
Evan, it looks like Charles County is moved on this.
Oh, yeah?
As well. They've announced their board of directors in February of this year. So maybe we'll say, let's see how well it works out in Charles County first.
Yeah, that's true. Charles County started theirs and they already have projects lined up, and Queen Anne's County is in the process of establishing one as well.
So are any of them joint with the city in one of their counties?
No.
No, but I did see in Charles County's legislation, they had language in there specifically saying that they could join up with other county or other area resilience authorities. They made sure that the bill included language that they they weren't limited from doing that.
Yeah.
That they could
Okay.
do that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that our bill does not do. Our bill is limited to Anne Arundel and Annapolis, so it does not provide the ability to join up with like Howard County or PG County or, anything else.
Yeah, that might be something else,
I think we got to figure it out for our county first, though.
Yeah, right. All right, so how about we say it's kind of not ripe, and then here's all our concerns that are, all those things that are in the red there, and then I'll add in the concern about infrastructure seems to be like they're talking about gray infrastructure, and green infrastructure should be a part of that as well. And that's a huge part of climate resiliency.
Yeah, but I think our next meeting is after the council meeting
Right.
in question, right? So we need to.
We needed to slow down this down.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was going to say, I feel like the way we adopted our bylaws meant that we could have letters approved in this format if we circulate them. And I know Allison and Jeremy and Bevan, you've had a subcommittee on this. So I think if we designate that you three sign off on the final version based on our vote on the notes, that would be fine, wouldn't it?
yeah, and I think I've just listed all the concerns here, and I think we can just, we can take a vote tonight to say, all right, our position is we think this is a good idea, but we don't think it's right for passage now. And we think we would like the county and the city to work on it and, address all these issues and then repropose it for passage next year. And give us some idea of what the plans are in the different jurisdictions that need to be funded.
That Madam.
And then just say these are our concerns with the specific legislation.
Madam Chairperson.
Yes, go ahead.
That was my thoughts. I don't think any of us have nearly the time to dive into this, but it would be instructive or interesting to see between Queen Anne's and the other counties you spoke of, what's different with their wording than ours. And we don't need to do a deep dive, like a complete history of when they started, but was it done in 6 months or did it take 18 months? And regardless of the time it took, I'd be interested to see if it all started from if there was some grandfather to this, University of Maryland language or whatever it is. It'd be instructive to see what other counties might have changed. Maybe they're addressing some of the concerns you have, Bevan, or that you voiced.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, we can just express what our concerns are without having to do I think we'll probably get pulled in. I would hope so, that we get pulled in to work on this, and then we don't have to put all that in the letter. Like, here's what Charles County did. Here's what Queen Anne's did, or the model ordinance. I don't know if there's a model ordinance from University of Maryland. It'd be interesting to find out.
And I can weigh in on that real quick. I was just scrolling through Charles County. The language of their enabling legislation in Charles County is the same language from the state legislation, pretty much word for word.
Okay.
And they introduced their legislation in November 2020, and it was passed and effective as of January 2021. So they did it in 2 months.
Oh.
But it doesn't look like they changed much, if anything, from what was in the state legislation.
Okay.
Okay. it would be interesting to speak to those people and say, here were some of our thoughts. And if they've got a different way to look at it that resolves our concerns. I'm just saying, talking to more people that were involved can't hurt. I don't know who in the city would have the time to bird dog that, because all of us are working for paychecks.
Yeah. And the city people are too, obviously. But.
Well, but yeah, and that's part of this is, the resiliency of the city.
No, this is in my wheelhouse and it's something I know. It's Mark Belton, who's I can speak to him. He's leading that charge for the Resilience Authority in Charles County.
Oh, is he the city manager down there?
Is he the city man? God, what is his position there?
County manager.
Let me look him up. What Mark's position there is.
Yeah. Okay.
Belton.
Yeah, he was previously the DNR secretary.
Right. He was the secretary of DNR. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I propose we take a position and just say, this is not ripe for passage this year, but we support this concept and we want to work with the county and resolve these issues, and just list these issues that we have here. So we need to decide on something tonight, some position to take tonight.
And Bevan, Mark is the deputy county administrator.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I move to write a letter to as Bevan has described and as described here.
Second.
Yeah, second.
Okay, and then we can send the letter around for edits. I'll get this done faster than the other letters, obviously, because we have a deadline on this one. So yeah, I'll just draft. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't even take the vote yet. So all in favor of drafting this letter to say we support it in concept. There's a lot of concerns we have. Not time to pass it this year. Want to work things out with the county. And then listing the concerns that we have listed here. So all in favor of doing that letter, say aye.
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 And then anybody not in favor or against that? Okay. All right, so I'll draft that letter and send it to Allison and Jeremy for your input, and then we'll send it around to everybody. Okay. All right, thanks you all. That took a lot of time, but it's important. So any other legislation? I know Allison, you had commented on this, the tree legislation about that's going to look, it's not introduced yet, but it's looking at trees that are on the inside of blocks, or the like they're not street trees.
Yeah, so trees on private property, trying to extend that beyond just 50 feet from the public right of way. So I know some staff took a look at that. Some other members in the environmental community took a look at that. I think it's going to be an improvement. I think that there's some additional disincentives for cutting down large trees, which I think is an improvement. And then also there was some information in there about trying to separate the person who is doing the evaluation of the health of the trees from the contractor that's going to cut the trees down.
Oh, okay, right. So they don't have the incentive to go, oh, it's in terrible shape, let me take it down for you, right?
Yes, they have to be separate. Okay. They have to be separate companies who are evaluating the trees, and with the concurrence of the city arborist before a different contractor would be granted a permit to cut the tree down. So all good things in my view.
All right. So it's not proposed yet, but it sounds like a good idea. So I don't think we have to, I know you've given input, so pre-introduction input on that. So
yeah, so I think that there were some changes that I think were going to be made. Most of mine were just most of my other comments were just basically questions. Some of them weren't relevant.
Okay.
just still getting familiar with the city code. So,
Okay.
so I think it's headed in a good direction.
Okay. I don't know. I don't see Eric Lashinsky on the on our meeting. Do you all know if he's here? I don't see him.
Eric is on late vacation.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought he was coming to this meeting. Okay. So we only have like we have like 4 more minutes. So if I want to keep you on schedule and get you out of here on time. Randy, you had your hand up. Did you want?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe propose something for a discussion for our next meeting or for future discussions about.
Also, we have the Jedi report. So if you can do that, if you have anything for that.
I do, but I'm not going to be able to fit that in right now. Maybe I can send it in an email, maybe to the group.
Okay.
But just real quick, I just wanted to talk about the possibility of legislative hiring authority for environmental careers for underserved, first to college educated students for environmental careers and such. So if not some kind of hiring authority, just maybe some kind of MOU or even just some type of statement that we can maybe forge or support or encourage with some of these environmental organizations within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I'm only saying this because there's been a similar thing taking place. So at other levels of government. So I just thought maybe something that we could possibly talk about.
So
I also wanted to talk about the safety as an environmental.
Oh, sorry.
Huh?
Can you get us an example of where they did that like the language?
Yeah, I'm working through one now with CRC and the EPA.
Okay.
And so yes, these things do exist. I can get you some more info on that.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to.
In that vein, I've been talking about talking to some of the older people about the Greening Youth Foundation in Atlanta, and they kind of do that kind of thing where they pair up qualified candidates with employers, nonprofits, businesses, things like that, and they for environmental and recreation careers. So
yeah, even if it's something to the degree of reviewing applications, reviewing resumes and cover letters, or even helping with just the overall package for interns that are coming out of internships. Also, I wanted to just talk about maybe for next time, the death of the lady who happened on West Street at the hotel, and just have a casual discussion about safety as an environmental concern. For so long, I've kind of been advocating for this in our group, but in instances like that, make it very clear how high crime areas and high risk areas for different environmental degradations can add to or kind of facilitate or foster the type of unsafe environments that is an environmental issue. Safety is an environmental issue. So just maybe having a discussion about how we can maybe do some things to create some other avenues or pipelines or pathways for some of these youth. In places like College Creek or College Creek Terrace or Eastport Terrace and all these other places as well. So.
Right. All right. Thank you for bringing that up, Randy. I think that's a good idea.
In regards to Randy's first point about employment, maybe a good first step would be to see what employers like Greenvest, Hannon Armstrong, and the solar and geothermal, Mark Schultz, people that are in the business now. I mean, I think everybody, particularly these days, they're hungry for talent. So I think just having a breakfast or a lunch with some of the operators of these local businesses and see what they're doing to reach out and find people. And even if we just have a list of here's local employers that are somewhere in the green world, go pursue jobs there.
Yeah. And then also another shameless plug, you can check out the Bay Weekly. There's an article in there about myself. and one of our interns with CRC, Chesapeake Research Consortium. So check that out. Her name is April Hunter. She's really cool, and so that's one of the things I'll be doing is trying to work as almost like a manager to uplift and highlight some of these interns so that they can create a track record for their career.
So Randy, can we get that online, or do we have to get the hard copy?
Yeah, I have a bunch of hard copies. I live right by Sammy's in Eastport, so Sammy's always has a stock. I try not to hurt them too bad. I just grabbed like 10 of them. But I also emailed you the link as well, Bevan.
All right.
Randy and Bevan, I can share an example with you guys too of something similar where it's a fellowship program that places fellows with local municipal and state agencies, which then have direct hiring authority for any fellows that come through their program. So if that would be helpful, I can share that.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, because that was one of those recommendations we have for our DEIJ, or I'll call it our Jedi memo. So we can pop that in there as an example. That'd be great.
Yeah, maybe we could nail it. Yeah. Maybe that'll help us tailor it down to 2 or 3 maybe items. So thank you. And Allison, definitely. I would love to talk more about that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So send that to us, Allison. All right. I think we are 2 minutes after 9, so I want to be respectful of your time, and I know Zoom fatigue is real for everybody. So I just want to adjourn the meeting. I don't think we need to take a vote on that. We'll just meeting is adjourned.